Do you have a good relationship with money? Do you have an anxious relationship with money? Or maybe you have an avoidant relationship with money, or just a really chaotic, untrustful relationship with money, or maybe you're scared of money deep down. And regardless of what goals you make or how you want to change your life to get more money, it is difficult. And I want you to think, why do I want more money? What would that change for me? Today, we are talking all about abundance mindset, how your nervous system can prevent you from meeting your New Year's resolutions or your goals with money, and what you can do to change it. Welcome to Burnout Solutions. My name is Mona Tippett. I am a registered nurse, a life coach, an emotional resiliency expert, and a mom. I love to help healthcare workers and caretakers and just busy, capable people understand their brain and nervous system so stress, overwhelm, and frustration do not run their life. Here on this podcast, we break down burnout, emotional overload, and survival patterns in simple human language. I love to give you practical ways to feel safer, calmer, and more present in your everyday life. You do not need fixing. What you need is support and a nervous system that knows that it's safe. Thanks for being here. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast for those who have been here before. And if this is your first time here, hello and welcome. I'm glad you found me, and I would appreciate a rate and review. And if you learned something new, I would encourage you to share it and subscribe so that we can get this podcast out to anyone who you think might need some help in understanding their mindset around scarcity and abundance and money. And today, that's what we are talking about. And I have been thinking a lot about scarcity and abundance. And my word for this new year is abundance. And I think a lot of times we associate abundance with money, not always, but very often. And today, as I'm talking about money, if you feel scarcity around something else, you can just insert that object in. A lot of us feel scarcity around time, around our health, wealth, even in our relationships. And those are the four things that people often struggle with if you could whittle everything down, and that's time, health, wealth, and relationships. And we often take account into making New Year's resolutions around those things. People often say, I want to make more money. I want to improve my health in this way. I want to manage my time better so I can make more money. Or I want to get out of debt. I want to have this savings. And a lot of times when we're making our New Year's resolutions, we're either running away from something and fear is driving it, or hopefully we are using abundance and I can do this and I want to create something and more of a positive side to creating our New Year's resolutions. Often I have found that until we gain the capacity to accept more and be okay with more in our life, when we make New Year's resolutions and goals, it's often hard for us to accomplish that just because of our nervous system. Feels like that is not safe, and that is so different from what we've had in the past that it rejects it. So today I'm going to talk a lot about developing the capacity to accept and change and be okay with having more, and how no matter what we are doing, and if we don't increase our capacity, it is harder for us to have more and create what we want. So I said this in the last podcast, outcomes don't create the feeling inside us. It's actually a process of change. It's a process of increasing our capacity. And that is how we are okay with the goals and we can actually make real life change. I also wanted to say that I am fascinated by humans. I am always interested in the why behind what I myself am doing and what other people are doing. And the more that I learn about the nervous system, everything makes sense. And I really do believe that the nervous system and our subconscious really are what are behind all of our behaviors. And I have seen this proven time and time again in my life and in working with clients, helping them understand their own nervous system. And if you haven't been here before, I want you to know that unless we can change those patterns that are deeply rooted in our subconscious or our nervous system and deep in our brain, we will keep doing the same things over and over again, because our brain is a prediction machine and it uses the past to guide our future decisions, unless we are aware and we purposefully change it. So today we're going to explore more about our relationship with money specifically and where it comes from. And then we're going to look at how our nervous system maybe had learned those patterns, specifically when it comes to money and our view of money being safe and okay to have, or something that is dangerous and we may need to protect ourselves from. And then we're going to finish up talking about what it looks like to actually create more security and more capacity to have that abundance and make the change that we want to in our life. I also want to give the caveat that I am definitely not perfect at this, and I am still very much on my own journey, specifically with scarcity and with money. And I am improving my own personal relationship with money. And it's just been so fascinating to watch myself and watch and notice my own blueprint that I got as a young child and how I've been trying to rewire and change my nervous system when it comes to money. And I will share a few experiences about that today. So let's get started. Money is not just about money. And I see so many adults, and maybe you do too, that have struggles around money. And this isn't just about money in their adulthood or their current situation. And often you can look at other people, or I will just use myself, for example. I have plenty to meet my needs. And if you were to look at my bank account and my house and the things that I have, I would guess that you could say that I have sufficient for my needs. And yet I do things that maybe don't make sense. For example, when I was younger, I would pay attention to gas prices. And I honestly don't even look at the number anymore. But when I was in high school and I started driving, I knew exactly how much gas was. And I would go to the gas station that was even 3 cents less. Or I would look at other gas stations and be like, oh, I'm not going to go there because it's 4 cents more. Okay, well, if you calculate, it was probably like a 15-gallon tank over 4 cents, right? Like 4 cents doesn't make a difference. It's less than $1 on a whole entire gas tank. And I know that I'm not the only person to do this, because now there's an app that shows you how much gas prices are. So you can just pull it up on your phone and say, okay, where is it less? That's where I'm going to go. Marketing has totally picked up on this. Another example is coupons. Oh, save $2 when you come here. And so you go there to save $2. Okay, $2 is something that I can totally give and live without. And that's okay. I don't need to save $2. However, lots of people use coupons because they need to control their money. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Another example is spaving, what I call spaving. And this is where something's on sale. You don't really need it, but you buy it and you are spending to save money later. So you think, oh, well, this is such a great deal. I'm going to stock up right now. And then maybe it sits in your house, it sits in your storage, it never gets used. Or if it's food, it expires. Or you buy something that nobody in your family will ever use, but it's such a great deal. So did you really save money? No, you spent money to help your future self that your future self actually never needed. So these are just things that I have seen in myself and other people do. And it's just interesting. So where did that blueprint come from? And why do we want to save 3 cents per gallon when in reality it's only $1? Why do we want to go to a restaurant that offers a $5 deal, or, the other day on my app, it popped up, oh, chips and queso or only $1 this week. And so my daughter's like, oh yeah, let's go. So we went to that restaurant to get $1 chips and queso. Okay. I've never bought chips and queso before. It actually wasn't really that great. But yet companies know that coupons will draw people in for that reason, right? So these are just some examples, and this is just interesting. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background of how that may have came about for you. I have talked about a blueprint before, but a blueprint is developed in the womb to 7 to 8 years old. And this is where our relationship with money started. It's our experiences, what was modeled to us in our earliest childhood time. And our nervous system remembers how we relate to the world, how we experience safety in the world, if our needs were met, if they weren't met, and how we relate to money and abundance or scarcity is based on that blueprint. And that blueprint creates a lens that we see money through. So whether you grew up in poverty or whether there was or wasn't money, maybe you yo-yoed back and forth. And if you had a lot of fear and insecurity around money, or a secure relationship, because this attitude was passed down more likely than not to you. And all of those experiences teach our nervous system something very specific. Like money equals safety, neutrality, or it's dangerous. Dangerous is in air quotes. It's something that we fear and need to run or hide from or feel uncomfortable about it. And I do think, let's pause for a second, that so many people are uncomfortable even talking about money. I think this is a social deal, right? We have been taught that it's rude to ask how much something costs or how much you make. And a lot of this is rooted in our own securities of our belief that if people make more money, they are more valuable, and the less money you have, the less value you have. And if I could just whittle down this entire episode into one core truth, it would be that if you struggle to feel at peace and ease and secure around your money, it's not that you're bad with money, but it's just that your nervous system has not experienced money as safety. And maybe you've associated too much of personal value and inherent worth with money. And as long as our nervous system sees money in that way, it will always move us into self-protection and turn on our sympathetic nervous system to protect us. And this is just our biology. This is just our nervous system working perfectly, but not working for us. Okay, one way that I have noticed that I see people gain this fear about money is from their observations of suffering and money. And what do I say with suffering of money? Well, a lot of times, let's take me for example. So I grew up on a dairy farm, and my house was really driven by work. As a young child, I woke up very early. I fed the calves before I went to school. I fed the calves after school. I helped with producing hay and milking cows and feeding calves and fixing fences and cleaning ditches and mucking stalls. And that was just part of our livelihood. That is what we did. And this is just something that was modeled to us, that you work really, really hard and, in air quotes, suffer to get money. Phrases that support that is money just doesn't grow on trees, right? Like money isn't something that comes easy. I see now doctors and high executives and people who work really, really hard to get money. I'm actually grateful that I have a strong work ethic, but when our nervous system sees suffering and money, sometimes it records those at the same time, that money equals suffering. And so we record that we have to struggle, we have to work extra hard, we have to never rest. And maybe your parents got second jobs, and you just know that you have to put a lot of effort to get money. And you saw that your caregivers sacrifice their health, their joy, their rest just to survive. So when your nervous system sees these things and that we have to put our nose to the grindstone and rest must be earned and rest can feel unsafe, it takes a lot of work to be worthy to get that money. And often our own nervous system recreates that pattern. And so that produces in our brain and our nervous system that money is hard to get and hard to hold on to. And we have to go above and beyond to get it, right? And so we record in order to survive. And this is a survival instinct. We have to work really hard all hours of the day, even if it's no longer necessary. I help a lot of high achievers and they have a really hard time slowing down. They are at the top of their class. They have worked really hard. And it is this working and working and working that they often associate their value with. And they could slow down, but it is hard for them. It biologically doesn't feel right. So people who have enough often feel like they don't. They're not okay with spending money. They feel like if they slow down, money could leave, and they have to push themselves to exhaustion. Our nervous system is just turning on our protective parts. Our body goes into sympathetic dominance, and our nervous system is doing its best to help us. Let's talk just briefly about what a protective part is. We all develop protective parts. And this is where your brain says, oh, I see that this happened to you in the past. Don't worry, I'm going to protect you from this happening again in the future. And how do these protective parts work? Well, I'm going to help prevent this from happening. I'm going to help you prepare for this happening again. And they take their job very seriously. And our protector part wants to keep us from that suffering. And that part of our brain can say, well, if I had enough money, I'll finally be safe. If I look successful on the outside, then I won't be rejected by people. Once I have this much in my bank account, then I can slow down. And this is just a fallacy because once we get there, we want more and more and more, or we have created something that needs more time and attention, and it just keeps going. And our protective part also can want to control every single dollar that we have. And that is why we pay attention to gas prices and coupons and Black Friday deals. And often we want a brand new car or something that proves that we have reached success, proves that we have a little bit more value. This is where brands come in, right? Expensive clothes. And sometimes we are okay getting that expensive thing and putting it on credit card debt because we want to look like we have more than we do. We want to look wealthy because wealth is tied to our worth and it's a status that we have made it. And our nervous system says, I want to protect you. And being wealthy or appearing to be wealthy is a way that you can feel loved, worthy, and safe. And so a lot of people fall into that trap. And you can say this is just vanity. Well, a lot of vanity is just about insecurity and protecting ourselves from feeling that insecurity. Okay, another way that our nervous system steps in is by being really, really controlling. And maybe you grew up in a chaotic environment where you saw chaos with money modeled or just chaos in relationships. And we develop a need to control because, again, if we can control our environment or our money or the people around us or how we eat or how we take care of our house, then that helps us feel safe inside. And our protective part says there was so much chaos in the past. So let's control every single thing and micromanage every single thing in our life so that we can avoid that chaos and feel safer inside. And I've given a few examples already about how we become hypervigilant and want to control our money. And sometimes we then want to control how our spouse manages their money or our children or our parents. And that again is because we experienced chaos in the past and we can feel really, really panicky when money is moving around or money comes in or out. Some people need to look at their bank account every morning, every night, a few times a day. I now notice that I get emails from my bank every single day. Oh, this went out, this came in, or my kid's Venmo card. Anytime they use their Venmo card, I get a notification. Your child spent X, Y, and Z at McDonald's. And it's Part of my brain feels really comfortable knowing that. Another part is like, I don't care. They can spend what they want. So even banks and apps and notifications, companies know that if we notify people, then they will feel safer and more in control of their money. So just understand where that comes from. When our protector wants us to control and feel in control because it's overcompensating to help us feel safe and secure. Most often it doesn't work because it's just controlling and it doesn't produce that safety and security unless you have that capacity to feel that safety. And this is just maybe because you have an anxious attachment to money. And with an anxious attachment to our money is feeling like there's never enough, no matter how much you earn. Often people have a difficulty enjoying money because they have given money a moral value. So this is a good thing to spend money on. This is a bad thing to spend money on. This is better to spend money on. And if I spend money frivolously, that's entertainment and joy and things that I don't have anything to show for spending that money for, right? I get caught in that trap a lot. And that can be difficult because you have this anxious attachment that money possibly could never be there. This also can happen in trying to manage other people and how they spend their money. Maybe your kids or your parents or your spouse, or you judge how your neighbor spends their money. And again, this is just when your nervous system says, what if money disappears? Another thing that we can develop with our blueprint is an avoidant attachment to money. And this develops when something feels so overwhelming that our nervous system shuts down. And this is just a brilliant adaptation that our nervous system creates. And it's when we see something so dangerous that we disassociate from ourselves. This is a dorsal vagal shutdown. And our nervous system says we can either experience this pain or we can totally cut ourselves off and disassociate so we don't have to feel that pain. And with an avoidant attachment, it could develop because money seemed to be very overwhelming. And the only way I can handle it is to shut down, look away, or disconnect. And so maybe that avoidant attachment developed because for several years you saw your parents fighting over money, and maybe they were getting divorced over several years, and they fought over custody, they fought over assets, they fought over who got what. And you witnessed a lot of this fighting and arguing and pain with money. So very similar to our nervous system recording suffering and overworking with money. In this situation, you could see fighting and pain associated with money, and your nervous system said, okay, finances are really dangerous. Money can rip my family apart. Money is a source of contention. Money is something that puts people into states of anger and dysregulation. And so now when I think about money, it's scary and it's something that I don't even want to be associated with because it ruins things and can be dangerous to me. And in that situation, your nervous system is going to disconnect and you're not going to have a very good relationship with finances. And that can look like not even wanting to look at your bank accounts. I don't want to open my bills. I want to avoid money, or I just like to spend money to numb myself because I don't have any good associations with money. And maybe you under-respond to financial stress and you might not have the money that you need to provide for your needs, yet you go on extravagant vacations, you go into a lot of debt. Maybe you go out to dinner right after you told a friend, I don't even know how I'm going to pay for my cell phone bill. And what it can look like is a lot of irresponsibility. And this is just numbness or being part of your dorsal vagal shutdown and your avoidance to money because you, again, think that it's dangerous. Another way of an unhealthy attachment or blueprint to money is a disorganized attachment. And that is where money can feel both like safety and dangerous because we grew up in a chaotic environment. Maybe we grew up in a home where there was a lot of abundance followed by sudden loss. I think of entrepreneurs or maybe real estate agents or people who make a lot and then lose a lot, or maybe just didn't plan very well. What it could look like now is you earn and then you reflexively get rid of it by overgiving, overspending. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of just extremes with money. And so your nervous system learned to associate money with chaos. And so it wants to recreate that chaos in your life, and you have a hard time trusting it. You have a hard time knowing what to do with it when you have it. You have a hard time knowing that it can help you because it's always gone from one extreme to the other. And so what we want to do is to, with all of these unhealthy relationships and all of these ways of attaching that haven't been helpful, what we want is to develop a secure and trustful and good relationship with our money. And that only happens when we develop the capacity to have that money. And when we have developed that internal safety, that money is here. And this could have been modeled to you. And that didn't mean that your life growing up never had curveballs, but that you learned that you could trust yourself, you could trust maybe God, you could trust that life works out, and we don't have to be so emotionally tied to our money, and we can navigate these extremes in our life. And part of all of this is money is not a number, but it's a feeling and a perception about it. And you could have been raised in poverty, but your caregivers created magical, wonderful things. Maybe you never went out to eat or on vacation or had nice clothes or things like that, yet you felt secure in your ability. You saw that work was modeled to get things, and your caregivers modeled responsibility, and they said, oh, this is so great. This is so abundant. We have so much. I think of the Christmas Carol and with Mr. Scrooge versus Tiny Tim. I think of on The Greatest Showman, how the day he loses his job, it's his daughter's birthday, and he comes home. And in that moment, he creates this beautiful, wonderful light show. Remember, it had the candle with the metal over it, and it was a spinning light show. And he wanted to communicate that his family was secure in that moment, though the rest of the show doesn't continue that. But in that moment, he wanted to show that his daughter was special and he was meeting her needs with this wonderful birthday present. So our secure attachment looks like being able to look at our finances and have discussions around them calmly. Our emotions aren't tied to it. We can enjoy money without guilt. We reward ourselves for a job well done. And again, this doesn't have to be a tangible thing. You can enjoy a massage or a walk or being out in nature and enjoying that abundance. It's also being able to save and spend with ease and with comfort. It's taking thoughtful risks. It's knowing that your life will have a natural ebb and flow when it comes to finances. And your money is a good, trusted relationship and not a threat or a scarcity or something dangerous or threatening. So how do we develop that capacity and that secure attachment? Well, first it comes with awareness, which is what I've already discussed. And then we realize that outcomes and a number doesn't heal scarcity, but capacity does. And expanding our window of tolerance when it comes to money, expanding our ability to receive and our perception about money and abundance is how we do that. And we introduce that to our nervous system. And we teach our body and give it the experiences that it needs so it can learn that there is no danger in money and it can learn to hold the good. And one example that I thought of is we can want and want and want, but if we don't have that capacity, it will feel wrong. And our nervous system, again, will see the unfamiliar as dangerous. And I want to use an example of being out in the sun. Even though being out in the sun, some of us love, even if we wanted to be out in the sun it couldn't sunburn us. And I think of when I went to Costa Rica last year with my husband's extended family. We went to the beach and everybody was out in the sun except for my father-in-law. And he was under the shade with a big hat and long sleeve shirt and long sleeve pants. And the kid said, "Grandpa, come out in the sun with us. Why aren't you in your swimsuit?" And he said, "Oh, my skin would get burned in the moonlight because this skin hasn't seen the light of day for 50 years and it's not going to today." I don't develop the ability to handle the sun, if we don't develop the ability to handle the finances and see them as security, it is hard for us and it's too much at once and we get burned and it's scary. So what we can do is gradually increase that capacity by doing what? Being able to receive the abundance and see things as abundant. And a few things that I have done that I think are helpful are just paying attention to when I have something, just paying attention to what it feels like to receive. And again, I work with a lot of overachievers, high achievers, people in healthcare. We are not very good patients. We take care of people, not people take care of us. And so it can be hard to receive. So I pay attention to when I go out in nature. Sunlight. I feel the sunlight on my skin. I did nothing to deserve that sunlight. When I'm hiking in the forest, I did nothing to deserve the beauty of the nature and the forest on my hike. When I'm walking through the store and a stranger smiles at me, I did nothing to deserve that smile, but I pay attention and I receive it and acknowledge it and enjoy it. When I hug my child or my spouse or my pet, that is something that I didn't really earn. I just enjoy it. When I open my refrigerator, I'm grateful that there's food in it. I also am vocal about the joy that I get from paying my bills. I don't grumble and complain. I don't like to pay bills today. I tell my kids, I'm so grateful that we can pay for our electricity. I'm so grateful that we have natural gas that heats our water. I'm so grateful for the hot water. And when I take a hot shower, I'm very grateful for the feeling and I'm paying attention to the abundance that I enjoy. When I go to Costco, when we make a purchase and buy furniture, I'm so grateful that we have this money and we can enjoy this. And just talking about abundance and giving your nervous system that feeling of, yes, I have, and it's okay, whether I earned it or not, can help create that experience of abundance in your life. Another thing is when you look at your bank account, sitting calmly, just looking at it. I worked with a client and I helped her use a different word because the word budget seemed to set off her nervous system response and it seemed scary. And so we used the word allocation. How are we going to allocate these funds? Because that was a more neutral word. So when we do this, we, again, are helping experience things that aren't as scary. Things we are paying attention to, things that we didn't earn, that we didn't work and suffer to get, things that aren't scary, and we are expanding our capacity. And here are some ideas on how you can heal with attachment styles. If you have an anxious attachment, practice loosening your grip. Check your checking account less often. Practice generosity. Tip more. Realize that you can be generous and you're still okay. Spend more on joy and frivolous things or things that you thought were frivolous, and know that you're still okay. And of course, I'm saying do all of this responsibly, but this is how we train our nervous system. See, I can do this. I can spend money on joy and entertainment and I'm still okay. If you have an avoidant attachment, turn towards your money. Practice looking at your finances gently. Make a plan, have conversations, reconnect the desire with money and to money, have your conversation, talk to your money. Okay, money, how can we work on this together? What can we do? If you have a disorganized attachment, well, just slow everything down. Titrate your spending, practice steadiness. practice having boring stability and be safe with your money. Just looking at things and having a calm feeling in your body is how we improve that capacity and that ability to enjoy that abundance. I also love to look at nature because nature is our greatest teacher. It never apologizes for being abundant. It never shrinks. It doesn't hustle for its money and its value. We have a flower garden, and my daughters have a little Blooming Sisters business where they make bouquets and they sell them. And one of the things that I love is looking at flowers. And we planted dahlias, and those dahlias were beautiful and amazing, and they never shrank back. They never apologized for their beauty. The flowers just grew to the best that they could. And I love that. And I like to take that example from nature, that our relationships are meant to be abundant. Our relationship with money is meant to be abundant. And that is, again, a perception that isn't forced. It's not earned through struggling, through pain. It's allowed, and we receive that through safety. So, just in closing, when your nervous system learns, I am safe, I can receive, I will be okay, then money stops being something that you survive, something that you're scared of, something that you want to avoid, and it becomes something that you live with and are okay with and feel peaceful about in steadiness, in ease, and in trust. And I want you to remember that with all of your New Year's resolutions and all of your goals with money and with anything, with your body, with your relationships, with your health, with your wealth, with anything, is until we actually develop that capacity to grow and improve and change, our nervous system and our brain can stop us. And remember that it is not an outcome, it's not a number, but it's actually a feeling that we are trying to get, a feeling that we want to experience. And we need to purposefully remind our nervous system and give it experiences and show it and model to it that it can have and it can grow in that capacity and that availability to have those goals. So there you go. I hope that this made sense. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. If you want any help with understanding your nervous system or your relationship with your money, with your health, with your wealth, with overworking, with your scarcity mindset, I would love to help you. And that is what I do. And just find me in the show notes on how to contact me, and take care and have a great week. Every week, you're learning something new here on this podcast, and that is a powerful first step. But guess what? Information alone doesn't create transformation. True change happens when you start to think differently and shift the nervous system patterns that drive your behavior. As a coach and an emotional resiliency expert, that is the work I do. I love to walk alongside you, whether it's one-on-one, in a small group that you choose, or with your workplace team. I can help you retrain your brain and nervous system so that stress no longer runs the show. You'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Let's do this work together.